An extra copy?
I don't need it.
There's that.
The problem is my copy doesn't show what this is because it's like
Oh, well, so there is that. Okay.
and I'm confusing the two pamphlets into one.
No, that's
So
fine.
we have to
But the one is,
He's kind of keeping those.
one. Wow. So you play nothing, you just play the damn beat.
and I was going to join them.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Okay, I think I.
And then when it gets to this section, I have to go into eighth notes. And put it again.
Okay. I think let's
Good morning. My name is Ryan McBee, and I am the president of the board of directors at the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. And I would like to welcome you on behalf of the board and the program council. You are welcome here, wherever you are from, and wherever you are in your journey. If you'd like more information on TVUC, please fill out the information card found in the seat back or pew in front of you and drop it in the collection plate as it is passed today, which it will be passed today. Regarding COVID-19, per the CDC, Knox County's current risk level is low. At this level, masks and vaccinations are encouraged but are no longer required. The full policy can be viewed online at the TVUC website. The Lizzie Kurzer French Room is a designated viewing space for those who prefer and others who prefer that others be masked. Room A is a designated room for families with children where masks are required for all over the age of 2. And you may also watch services online, as many are doing right now. As we move forward together, please remember that we are each other's keeper. If you or your family is interested in our youth religious education program, please visit the education table in the lobby to answer any questions. And now please silence your electronic devices as we enter into worship together.
Thank you. This musical meditation is based on a Hindu hymn that is found at number 176 in our hymnal. The version in our hymnal is based on the Bharat Scouts and Guides program of India. And other versions are also used in the public schools programs as a morning prayer. During this meditation, you can use the following text from the hymn as a focus. Let service be our creed. Let service be our action.
The theme for today's service is progress, not perfection. So we'll talk about perfectionism. And I realized when I did the holes for my readings, I didn't do them evenly. So now one of them is sticking out. And I think that's going to bother me the whole time. So our opening words come from Walter Royal Jones. Mindful of truth, ever exceeding our knowledge, and community ever exceeding our practice, reverently we covenant together, beginning with ourselves as we are, to share the strength of integrity and the heritage of the Spirit and the unending quest for wisdom and love. Come, let us worship together.
Well, who knew I was next? So much for perfection. Progress, Not Perfection, by Rebecca Crozier. With every breath, with every minute, we are moving along on a path of knowing ourselves and knowing others, of knowing something different, something real, about what it means to be living with this one temporary life, of letting go of what we're told and embracing and trusting what we are learning for ourselves. And this progress is by no means linear. It is one big, beautiful mess. There are setbacks and doubt, incredible experiences, and ones where we prefer to crawl right out of our bodies. Amen. And that is where the perfection lies. It is an understanding that life, too, is a series of ups and downs, successes and failures, joys and sorrows, and to be truly alive is to be present for all of it. So, as you sit in meditation, whatever that looks like, give yourself a grin for this incremental gain, for your progress, your evolution, your journey, and enjoy every breath of the way. You know, yesterday I was at South Knox Pride, and it was hot. It was very hot. And the canopies we had, one didn't have all the legs, and the other didn't have the canopy. And so it was like, and I must admit, today I am totally not here. I mean, I'm like here, but it's like everything, every brain cell I have just to walk, let alone rethink. So today is my day of imperfection. All the other days are perfect, of course. Seriously, I wanted to say the joy of yesterday of being there representing TVUC. And surprisingly, at least 3 or 4 people, oh yeah, it's still there? I used to go there. And I'm like, well, come on back. It's all right. The weather's, it's like, water's fine, it's good, come. But on the whole, it was also a very difficult time because there were a lot of young people who didn't feel that they were loved. And so I tried to bring our message that people are loved. They're loved here. Now, whether we all agree or we all practice the same way or whatever we think or feel, there is a God in you that I love. And in them, I saw gods that are waiting to flourish and grow and be bountiful. So, let us say that joy, and we can say joy, thanks to that one joy, that we have a congregation that at least says the words that need to be heard for people who need to hear them. I don't have any sad things. No one has shared anything this week. And so I'm wondering if anyone's holding anything. I know I have a friend who has cancer, and she's in Germany, and so it's rather difficult to visit, but thank God for Zoom. I never knew that you could Zoom someone and still hold their hand. So I ask you to pray for everyone, or meditate, or think good, positive thoughts for anyone sad, suffering, or alone. And to remember to hold joy in your hearts in case someone else needs to see it. No prayer today. I think that was an out loud prayer. And I don't want to test my imperfection too much.
short stanza by singing 5 on the last hymn. So don't worry, don't.
Progress, not perfection. That's a very apt description of me in my LGBTQ plus journey. I joined the LGBTQ Welcoming Committee before the pandemic to serve in some capacity and to learn. You see, I'm a late blooming lesbian. I finally acknowledged my true sexual orientation in my late 50s as a widow after having been married to a man for over 30 years. Of course, I understood the LGB component of the acronym LGBTQ+. But as with many folks my age, I had only a rudimentary understanding of the TQ+ component and its terminology: transgender, trans woman, trans man, non-binary, genderqueer. Fortunately, during the pandemic lockdown, the Welcoming Congregation Committee was able to preview a video series entitled Transforming Hearts. It was created and presented by 2 trans men specifically for UU congregations endeavoring to be welcoming, not only of the LGB component of the acronym, but of the TQ+ as well. Is TQ+ a new phenomenon, I ask myself? No, I learned, but the terminology has evolved. Words and meaning are always evolving. For example, bisexual originally referred to a person who identified as both a man and a woman. Identifying as both a man and a woman is now referred to as bigender under the transgender umbrella. And bisexuality is now used to mean attraction to multiple or all genders. What about the T? T stands for transgender. For transgender individuals, the gender they identify with is different than the sex assigned to them at birth. Most transgender people have a gender identity that is either male or female. The Q refers to people who are unsure of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And the plus symbol is intended to encompass everyone not covered by any of the other letters. Some societies, like ours, tend to recognize just 2 genders, male and female. The idea that there are only 2 genders is sometimes called gender binary, because binary means having 2 parts. Therefore, non-binary is a term people use to describe genders that don't fall in one of these 2 categories, male or female. Non-binary people are not confused about their gender identity or following a new fad. Non-binary identities have been recognized for millennia in cultures and societies around the world. Non-binary people are usually born with bodies that may fit typical definitions of male and female, but their innate gender identity is other than male or female. People whose gender is not male or female use many different terms to describe themselves, with non-binary being the most common. Another term is genderqueer. If this is confusing, that's okay. Some people, like me, haven't heard a lot about non-binary genders or have trouble understanding them. But identities some people don't understand still deserve respect. One area is a particular challenge for me: being respectful of a person by using their preferred pronoun. You can't tell if somebody is non-binary simply by looking at them, just as you can't tell if someone is transgender simply by how they look. Different non-binary people, you may use different pronouns. Many use they and them. After 70+ years of instantly assigning a person to a binary male-female box based on their physical appearance, it is exceedingly difficult for me to correctly refer to a person I know to be non-binary and who has requested to be referred to as they or them when they physically appear to me to be male or female. I mess this up all the time. Hence, I'm non-perfection for sure. While I have every intention of using the preferred pronoun, just as we have muscle memory, we have brain memory, and I frequently, reflexively use the pronoun he or she. But I'm going to keep trying, and that makes me a work in progress. TVUUC has taken seriously the challenge to be a welcoming congregation for LGBTQ+ folks. But it's a process that must be nurtured. We cannot declare victory and move on. We need to better understand what it means to be transgender, questioning, non-binary, and other, so that we can embrace and engage with them, not to assimilate them, but to transform our congregation. When opportunities are presented to attend workshops, forums, or video presentations to broaden our understanding, I hope to see you there.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today at TVUUC. My name is Claudia Presley, and I'm the Director of Finance and Operations here. Today is a Generosity Sunday. You guys have heard me tell this spiel lots. You probably already can say it by memory yourselves, but if you're visiting, let me go ahead and just tell about it. If you're here in the sanctuary, we have offering baskets on either side, and today we are actually going to pass those out among the congregation. So if you would like to give by check or by cash, please place it in the offering basket. If you would like to go out into our lobby after the service and give through the kiosk that is out there, you're welcome to do that. If you are in the sanctuary right now or watching us online and would like to text give, you can text to the number 73256, type in TVUUC and the amount that you would like to give. The other ways that you can give are to go to our website and hit the Give Now button, or you can log into your Realm account. So thanks again for being here with us. Welcome to the service. We hope you join us afterwards for the congregational meeting.
Pianists are famously perfectionists. Saint-Saëns presents pianists as a class of beast in his Carnival of the Animals, and he humorously portrays us practicing scales, making mistakes, and leaving the exercise unfinished in a huff of frustration. Practicing an instrument is often similar to meditative practice. It requires mindfulness of the body and thoughts, daily practice, and acceptance of mistakes as you focus on progress, not perfection.
This morning, I want to talk about overcoming perfectionism, but I'm a little bit reluctant to do it because every time I try to talk about overcoming perfectionism, I never seem to get it right. The book, the King James Bible has this verse, "Be ye perfect. Be ye perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect." That's a pretty high bar for human behavior. Of course, what you may not know is that the Greek word that's translated as perfect can also be translated as whole or complete. In other words, the translators of the King James Bible may have gotten it wrong. That's appropriate because the book is interpreted by human beings, translated by human beings, and human beings often fall short of perfection. Now, in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous and other 12-step recovery programs, there is a saying that our goal in life should be progress and not perfection. The perfect is often the enemy of the good. Our ideas about perfection can be obstacles to progress. They can even be obstacles to wholeness, obstacles to completeness. Now, when I was a college student, undergraduate years at the University of Tennessee, I took a class on Buddhism through the Religious Studies department. And one of the things that intrigued me about Buddhism as a young man was that you get more than one lifetime to get it right. If you don't get things perfect in this life, try again next time. The main attraction for me wasn't so much the idea of reincarnation. What intrigued me and attracted me was a religion that put realistic expectations on human behavior and what can be accomplished in any one lifetime. Think about it. When you were in college, did you turn in your first draft of your term paper? Nobody wants to be graded on their first draft. It takes more than one draft before we get it to where we want to turn it in and get a grade. Maybe life is like that. Maybe we need more than one draft. Now, when I was a religious education director back in the 90s, back when the church was in the old building, I discovered a collection of stories called the Jataka Tales. And these are folk tales that are told about the Buddha's many different lifetimes, and they have the quality of magical realism. These stories include talking animals and gods and demigods and other supernatural character. And these are the stories of the Buddha's incarnation over many different lifetimes, sometimes as an elephant or a monkey or a deer or a goose or some other animal. His human incarnations are also include a robber, a thief, so obviously an imperfect person, a carpenter, a warrior, a merchant, a herdsman, a king, and a monk, and many other roles. Now, there are many good collections of the Jataka Tales, and I really, it's a great thing to discover and read, and especially if you have kids in your life, because there's some very kid-friendly versions of the story. Most of the stories focus on the wise things the Buddha had to say in different lifetimes, the wisdom and the knowledge that he spread. However, recently I discovered a collection called Before Buddha Was the Buddha by Rafe Martin, and it includes many times when the Buddha got it wrong, when he blew it, when he made mistakes. Fortunately, he always got a do-over. In one of the Jataka Tales, Buddha is reincarnated as a snake. But not only a snake, the king of all snakes, the emperor of all snakes. But this was a demotion because in his previous life, he'd been a human being and he'd seen the snake king and he thought, wow, I would like to be wealthy and powerful like that snake king. And so he was reborn as a snake king. But here's the thing, only human beings have a hope of reaching enlightenment. That's one of the latter stages of reincarnation, so you can't reach enlightenment as a snake. And so it is better in enlightenment terms to be a low-ranking human than a high-ranking snake. So he got it wrong. In Buddhism, they say feeding our desire does not lead to contentment any more than drinking salt water quenches our thirst. So the mistake the Buddha made in craving wealth and power was drinking the salt water, metaphorically speaking. So what we learn from the Jataka Tales is the Buddha sometimes gets it wrong. Even the Buddha needs more than one lifetime to get it right. Now there's another Jataka tale where the Buddha is a human. He's the emperor of the whole world, but he's not happy. He's not happy being the emperor of the whole world. He wants to ascend into heaven. And so somehow he manages to ascend into heaven, but once he gets there, he's not happy either. He realizes there are many different levels to heaven, and he is at the lowest level. And so he spends millions of years going from one level of heaven to another level of heaven to another level of heaven until he's finally at the highest heaven. And when he gets to the highest heaven, the God of the highest heaven says, "Come and I will share all of my power with you." And the Buddha thinks, he doesn't even say it, he thinks, I don't want to share power. I want to have all the power. I want to rule from the highest heaven. And with that selfish thought, the Buddha fell from heaven. So not only did the Buddha get it wrong, he spent millions of years getting it wrong. And yet another Jataka tale, the Buddha is a good friend to the king, and the king is wealthy and powerful. But the Buddha says, I don't have any need of wealth and power, so he goes off to meditate in a cave. But the king has a dream. He dreams that if the Buddha would come back and sacrifice animals in a ritual, then the king would become the most powerful man on earth. So he goes to try to get the Buddha to come back from the cave where he's meditating, where he's trying to reach enlightenment. He says, come back, and if you'll do this ritual sacrifice, I'll give you wealth. I'll give you power. I'll give you whatever you want. And the Buddha says, I don't need wealth. I don't need power. Finally, the king says, well, if you'll come back, I'll let you marry my beautiful daughter. Well, what can I say? The Buddha was a man. And he came back to the kingdom, but as he was raising his sword to do the animal sacrifice, he remembered his vow of peace. He remembered his vow of nonviolence, and he returned to the cave to meditate. So he both succumbed to temptation and resisted temptation, which is not bad, but it's not perfect either. One of the things that is wonderful about the Jataka Tales is people of all faiths can learn something from it. If you're a Christian, a Buddhist, a humanist, whoever you are, there's a lot of wisdom in these stories that have magical realism a part of them. And if you're in Alcoholics Anonymous or 12-step program of some kind, this emphasis on progress and not perfection, the idea of taking things one day at a time, one step at a time, one life at a time, can be powerful. But we don't have to be in recovery to appreciate this approach. Jennifer told us a wonderful story about how when we attempt to be as inclusive a congregation as we aspire to be, we come against our growing edges. We come against the areas of growth that we have. As we attempt to dismantle racism and other oppressions in our society, we don't always get it right. We don't always get it right. Sometimes we relapse into old patterns. And sometimes we have to make amends and start again. As we seek that beloved community by dismantling racism and other oppressions, we need to remember not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Now, one of my favorite translations of the Jataka stories was written by a Muslim woman, Noor Inayat Khan. And she found in these Buddhist stories things that resonated with her own Sufi Muslim tradition, and she wanted to pass these stories on to children. So she wrote a book called 20 Jataka Tales, which is designed for children. And she was a pacifist, so she was really interested in those stories that teach peace, teach making peace with enemies, teach about compassion for all sentient beings. And so I discovered these books when I was a religious education director, and I've used them over the years. And it wasn't until this year that I learned something about the author, that the author was a pretty unusual and amazing person. Now, Noor wrote her translations of the Jataka Tales when she was living in Paris during the late 30s and early 40s. And shortly after the book was published, the Nazis invaded her country. And many French citizens chose to cooperate and collaborate with the Nazi war machine, but Noor would not. She escaped to England, and there she was safe, but she decided she was not content just being safe. So she decided to train as a spy, and she parachuted back into France, and she was a communication specialist. She had a radio, and this was one of the roles that had the shortest lifespan. People with radios were often captured and often killed very quickly. But her work in communications helped 30 airmen escape who had been downed by Nazi planes. And she helped lay the groundwork for the D-Day invasion. And she was able to, her work, she was a pacifist. That was her original position. Allowed people to bomb bridges and bomb factories and bomb railroads. So she decided, she was arrested, tortured, and killed in Dachau. There's a movie about her life in the Knoxville Library, and I put it into my DVD player and I hit play, but it began with a scene where she's being tortured, and I couldn't watch it because she is a person to me, not a character, a person to me. She was arrested and tortured and killed in Dachau concentration camp. Now, she knew this work was dangerous, but she agreed to do it anyhow, and she received a posthumous medal from both the French and English governments, the Croix de Guerre and the St. George Cross. Now, Noor began her life as an author of children's books about peace and nonviolence, but she also believed in practicing what she called the mysticism of messy hands. That would make a great sermon in itself. The mysticism of messy hands. Spirituality means choosing sides when human dignity is at stake. Spiritual life is not about remaining aloof and removed when genocide and hatred is going on all around you. A friend of Noor's family wrote of her after she died, "Was it a contradiction to kill in order to stop violence? In front of the extermination of millions of Jews, how can one preach spiritual morality without participating in preventive action?" Noor embodied spirituality in action. She began with the ideals of peace and nonviolence, but when those were not an option, she chose progress and not perfection. Like Noor, we are all challenged to overcome our perfectionism. We might have made different choices under similar circumstances, and most of us will never have to make such dramatic choices under such dramatic circumstances. But I'm willing to bet most of us have found ourselves in circumstances where life is messy. Have we not? The choices available to us are imperfect. I think most of us have been there. I bet every single person in this room has been in that spot. And I'm willing to bet that when it comes to overcoming perfectionism, none of us get it right. None of us get it right. None of us are good at it. So remember, when you leave the church today and you go out into the world, even the Buddha made mistakes. Let that idea give you comfort. And we too, we can go out into the world and choose progress and not perfection, mindful of the power of taking one day at a time, one step at a time, one life at a time, mindful of truth ever exceeding our knowledge, and community ever exceeding our practice. Mindful that the goal in life is not perfection, but progress. So be it. Prophetic Church, the world awaits your imperfect ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free. After church, we're going to have a congregational meeting, so if you want to see the democratic process at work, if you're a member, come and vote. If you're not a member, just come and watch and see how we make decisions in the church. We invite you to leave while we do a little bit of setup and register for the meeting out in the hall. But first, as your last act of worship, I invite you to turn and greet your neighbor.
had it in my head that it was So, anyway, the ringing of the chime was, I felt for you. It's like, other people have done the same thing when they ring the bell, and people would ring the bell and have never done it before. So, the reaction of the congregation was great. It let you off the hook, right?
Love the gong. Woke me up. You woke me up.
Nobody is sleeping. The God's sanctuary after this.
Hey, John, just in time